Sun. In 1969, a machine built in Britain and France did something no commercial aircraft had ever done before. It crossed the sky at twice the speed of sound. The company behind it employed over 80,000 people. It built bombers, fighters, guided missiles, and the most advanced civilian aircraft on Earth. Within 15 years, that company no longer existed. Its name was the British Aircraft Corporation, and its story is not simply about one beautiful plane. It's about what happens when a nation dismantles the very industry it once dominated. To understand BAC, you have to understand what Britain was in the 1950s. The country still possessed the second largest aerospace sector on the planet. Dozens of independent firms designed military jets, airliners, helicopters, engines. Names like Vickers, English Electric, Bristol, de Havilland, Hunting, each with its own design offices, test pilots, and government contracts. But the economics were breaking apart. Aircraft had become so expensive to develop that no single British firm could fund a new program alone. The American giants, Boeing, Douglas, Lockheed, operated at scales British companies could not match individually. In 1959, the government forced consolidation. The message was blunt: merge or lose your contracts. By 1960, Vickers Armstrong's, English Electric Aviation, Bristol Aeroplane Company, and Hunting Aircraft were pressed together into a single entity, the British Aircraft Corporation. A shotgun marriage of proud engineering cultures, each with different traditions, different factories, and different ideas about what mattered. But BAC made it work. Remarkably well at first, the TSR-2 strike aircraft pushed the boundaries of speed and electronics. The Lightning Interceptor already flew with the RAF. The BAC One-Eleven became Britain's first successful short-haul jet airliner, selling to airlines worldwide. And then came the project that would define everything. Concorde, a joint program with France's Sud Aviation, later Aerospace. The goal was almost unreasonable. Build a passenger aircraft that cruised at Mach 2 above 60,000 feet, carrying 100 passengers across the Atlantic in 3.5 hours. The engineering challenges were immense. The airframe had to endure kinetic heating at speed. The engines needed afterburners for acceleration, yet efficiency at cruise. The fuel system doubled as a thermal management mechanism, pumped fore and aft to shift the center of gravity as the aircraft transitioned between subsonic and supersonic flight. BAC's Filton facility and the French team delivered. The prototype flew in 1969. Certification followed in 1975. Concorde entered service with British Airways and Air France in 1976. It was, without question, a technical masterpiece. But the orders never came. At its peak of optimism, the program had over 70 options from airlines around the world: Pan Am, TWA, BOAC, Qantas, Japan Airlines. One by one, they cancelled. The 1973 oil crisis quadrupled fuel costs. American regulators banned supersonic overland flight due to sonic boom concerns. Environmental opposition mounted. In the end, only 14 production Concordes were built. The British and French governments essentially gave them to their national carriers because no one else would buy them. For BAC, this was devastating but not immediately fatal. The company still had military work: the Jaguar strike aircraft, built with France, the Rapier missile system, consulting and licensed production deals in the Middle East and Asia. The Saudi Arabian contract alone, known as Al-Yamama in later years under BAC's successor, became one of the largest defense deals in history. The company was generating revenue. It employed tens of thousands across multiple sites, but structurally, something had shifted beneath it. Here is where the hidden crack becomes visible. BAC never controlled its own destiny. It existed because the government told 4 companies to merge. Its shareholder structure reflected that forced origin. Vickers and English Electric held the shares. The government held the power. Every major program decision, whether to fund a new airliner, whether to pursue the American market, whether to invest in wide-body technology, required political approval. And British aerospace policy in the 1960s and 70s was chaotic. The TSR-2 was cancelled in 1965 at enormous cost, replaced by American F-1-111s that were themselves later cancelled for Britain. Billions in development knowledge discarded. BAC proposed a new generation airliner, the Three-Eleven, a wide-body jet, to compete with the Lockheed TriStar and Douglas DC-10. The government refused funding in 1970. That decision handed the future of civil aviation to American manufacturers for a generation. While BAC waited for permission to build the future, Boeing built the 747. Airbus, initially a European consortium BAC, was excluded from due to political disputes, began developing the A300. BAC had the engineers. It had the capability. What it lacked was the institutional freedom to act commercially. Then came 1977. The Labour government passed the Aircraft and Shipbuilding Industries Act. BAC, along with Hawker Siddeley Aviation and Scottish Aviation, was nationalised, absorbed into a new state entity called British Aerospace. The British Aircraft Corporation ceased to exist on the 29th of April, 1977. Not through bankruptcy, not through market failure, through political decision. Its factories continued operating. Its employees still went to work, but the identity, the brand, the corporate entity that built Concorde was dissolved into a government holding. British Aerospace was later privatised in 1981 under Thatcher. It merged with Marconi Electronic Systems in 1999 to form BAE Systems. Today, BAE Systems is a major defence contractor, but it builds no commercial aircraft. The civil aerospace heritage of BAC lives on only in the Airbus consortium that BAC was once shut out of, and which now builds wings in the same Filton factory where Concorde was assembled. The unravelling was not one catastrophe. It was a sequence of constrained choices. A government that forced consolidation but then refused to fund the products consolidation was meant to enable. A supersonic marvel that proved commercial aviation cared more about economics than speed. A cancelled airliner program that left the wide-body market entirely to competitors. And finally, nationalisation that erased the company altogether. By the time Concorde itself was retired in 2003, the company that built it had already been gone for 26 years. 80,000 jobs had not vanished overnight. They dispersed, restructured, renamed, gradually redirected away from the ambition of building complete aircraft and towards subcontracting, components, and defense electronics. Britain went from building entire airliners to building wings for someone else's airliners. The lesson here is not that Concorde was a mistake. Technically, it remains one of the greatest engineering achievements in aviation history. The lesson is structural. When a company exists at the pleasure of government, its survival depends not on engineering excellence or market performance, but on political continuity. BAC had no ability to self-fund its way into the next generation. It could not raise capital independently for a wide-body program. It could not choose its own international partners freely. Every door required a minister's signature. And when the political wind changed, there was no commercial foundation strong enough to resist. The company that built the fastest airliner in history did not fail because it lacked talent, ambition, or technical brilliance. It failed because it was never truly free to compete.